Get that man away. Immediately.
How can this dog chase me away?
James Carter is the kind of man that most folks just pass by without a second glance, never pausing to see what's beneath the surface. He's an older black veteran, quiet and reserved, with eyes that have seen far too much and a posture weighed down by years and memories. After years of service in the U.S. Marine Corps on the brutal battlefields of Vietnam, James came home carrying scars you could see and ones you couldn't. Now retired, he finds solace in the simple peace of the city park, sitting on that lonely bench and watching life drift by. But this ordinary afternoon is about to take an astonishing turn. As James soaks in the comfort of nature, a group of police officers approaches, their suspicion written all over their faces. To them, he's just another nameless face, maybe a troublemaker, or perhaps someone who doesn't belong here. Their voices ring out, drawing the attention of passers-by to the unfolding confrontation. Tension fills the air as the officers escalate things, assuming James is a vagrant and ignoring his quiet dignity and the truth of his service. That moment peaks when the police release their K9 unit, a strong German shepherd trained to obey without question. Onlookers brace for disaster, holding their breath as the dog charges toward James. In that heart-stopping instant, the whole park watches, unsure of what will happen next. Little do they know this isn't just a misunderstanding. It's the start of a revelation that stops everyone in their tracks, forcing the officers to confront their own biases and changing the community forever. What secrets from James's past will come to light? How can a moment of recognition turn accusations into acts of redemption? The answers are nothing like anyone expects. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more inspiring stories like this one. All right, let's get started. The city park is alive with the chatter of families, the laughter of children, and the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. Yet, tucked away on that old wooden bench under the oak tree, James Carter is almost invisible to the world around him. His rough, calloused hands, shaped by decades of hardship, rest on his knees, steady even as a storm of memories swirls behind his quiet gaze. James wears a faded olive green jacket, embroidered with tales of mud, rain, and gunpowder, but most people walking by see only an old man sitting alone with his thoughts. A little girl runs past him, her hair flying, clutching a melting ice cream cone. She glances at James for a moment, just a flicker of curiosity, before dashing back to her mother. James smiles softly, then closes his eyes, letting the warm sunlight wash over his face. In that heartbeat, peace floods through him, the kind of peace that's rare, one only those who've survived chaos can truly feel. He breathes in slowly, his shoulders rising and falling. In his mind, the world grows quiet. But beneath that calm, there's always tension, a readiness as if life could ambush him at any moment. That's what war does, he thinks. It teaches you to wait for whatever comes next. A woman nearby notices him and says gently, "He sits there almost every afternoon, you know." Her companion nods. "I've seen him. He never bothers anyone, just watches the birds." Their voices fade away, kind but with a touch of distance, as if kindness has its limits. The city's noise dulls behind the green wall, and James lets himself drift. For a moment, he's far from the present, lost in memories of helicopters roaring and the silent bonds with his fellow soldiers. Those memories, sometimes so vivid he could reach out and touch them, fill him with both pride and an indescribable loneliness. His thoughts wander, why do people look right through me? But he pushes the pain aside. Instead, he watches the squirrels scurry and squabble among the fallen leaves. Life's simple rhythm goes on without him. A group of teenagers plays basketball across the way, their voices full of confidence and energy. One of the boys fumbles the ball and it rolls right up to James's feet. The boy runs over, hesitates for a second, then asks, "Hey, sir, could you pass that back to me?" James smiles, picks up the ball and tosses it back with a surprisingly steady arm. The boy grins wide, "Thanks a lot." Before running off, that brief connection gives James a strange sense of hope. But as he watches the boy rejoin his friends, he wonders if anyone truly sees the boy or if he's just another shadow in this fast-moving world that James can't quite keep up with. The sun sinks lower, casting long golden rays across the park. James leans back, closes his eyes, and listens to the heartbeat of the city. Steady, relentless, alive. He hears footsteps on the pavement. At first, they're light and rhythmic, then stronger, more purposeful. He opens his eyes and sees 3 police officers heading down the path. They're sharp in their uniforms, voices low and serious. James watches them draw nearer, their expression stern. He feels that familiar unease, a soldier's instinct kicking in. Something's about to change. He sits up a bit straighter, folding his arms in his lap. The world so peaceful just minutes ago seems to close in around him. The officers stop just a few feet away, staring at him, their presence casting a long, cold shadow over the bench. One officer speaks up, "Good evening, sir. You've been here for a while." His tone sharpens suddenly, his eyes scanning between James and the park behind him. James replies softly, "I'm just enjoying the afternoon, officer." His voice carries the weight of years, and something in his eyes makes the officer hesitate for just a second. But then the other 2 step forward, their stances rigid. "Can you tell us why you're here? The park's about to close." James feels that old pain resurface, a mix of sadness and resignation. He searches their faces for any sign of understanding, but all he finds is suspicion. He looks away, his eyes following the sunlight filtering through the branches. The air grows heavy with unspoken words, and James braces himself. He knows all too well that in this world, survival sometimes means enduring, even after surviving so much. The late afternoon light bathes the park in a gentle glow, but for James, the warmth has faded, replaced by a chill unrelated to the breeze. The 3 officers stand in a tight group in front of him, uniforms crisp, their radios crackling with distant voices. James senses all eyes in the area turning toward him. Some curious, others wary, a few perhaps sympathetic. The first officer, a broad-shouldered man with a square jaw and tired blue eyes, speaks again. "Do you have somewhere to be, sir? It's not safe out here this late for someone like you." His voice trails off, leaving something ugly hanging in the air. James straightens up, forcing himself to meet the man's eyes. "I'm just sitting here thinking. I come here every day. It's where I feel at peace." The second officer, younger and fidgety, glances at his watch. "The park closes in 30 minutes. Are you sure you're not waiting for anyone?" James shakes his head. No officer, just enjoying the sunshine. His voice trembles, not from fear, but from exhaustion, the kind built up over years of being questioned just for existing. A small crowd starts to gather at a distance. A mother pulls her 2 daughters closer, her face tense. An older man in a red baseball cap mutters, "Leave him be." But his words are swallowed by the tension. The third officer, A woman with her hair tied back tightly kneels down to James's level. "Sir, we're just making sure you're not causing any trouble. We've had reports of loitering lately. People are worried." James looks at her pain, flashing across his face. "Do I look like trouble?" he asks, his voice almost a whisper. The woman hesitates. For a moment, something in her eyes softens. But then she remembers her duty. She stands up, straightens her uniform, and looks away. "We're just doing our job, sir." James sighs slowly, heavily, his shoulders slumping under an invisible weight. His hands clench and then relax in his lap. Memories flood back, years of fighting, protecting, surviving, only to return home and find peace, denied even in the simplest places. He wants to shout, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I've done?" But those words never leave his lips. Instead, he sits in golden silence, feeling the sting of invisibility. Across the grass, the teenagers from the basketball court pause, ball in hand. One of them, a lanky kid with dark skin and hopeful eyes, watches the scene unfold. He whispers to his friends, "This isn't right." They shift on their feet, uncertain whether to step in or stay back. The officers start murmuring among themselves, words clipped. "He doesn't seem drunk. No ID. Should we run him in?" James sits still, each word stabbing deeper than any wound. Suddenly, the officer with the tired blue eyes turns to James. "Sir, do you have any ID?" James nods slowly, reaching into his worn jacket pocket. He hands over an old leather wallet. The officer flips through it, stopping at a faded Marine Corps ID card. He stares at it surprised, then quickly looks away, as if ashamed of what he's uncovered. The officer hands back the wallet, his voice less certain. "You were in the Marines." James meets his gaze, steady and unshaken. "Yes, a long time ago." The silence that follows is heavy. The three officers, the veteran and the crowd, waver between judgment and compassion. Someone in the distance whispers, "Thank you for your service." But the words dissolve in the wind, too faint to make a difference. The first officer clears his throat. "We're just looking out for the community, sir. You understand?" James nods wearily. "I understand more than you think." The crowd grows, the park suddenly alive with whispers and uncertainty. That moment hangs fragile and profound as the sun sets, casting long shadows across the grass. And James remains seated, waiting, enduring, wondering if he'll ever exist without having to explain why he belongs. The atmosphere in the park thickens, every eye watching, every whisper amplified by the tension. James can feel it, the weight of suspicion, the silent judgments passing from stranger to stranger. His Marine ID, once a badge of honor, now just another thing to scrutinize, not respected. Officer Mitchell shifts uncomfortably. His eyes linger on James's weathered face, searching for some hidden truth. Officer Grant grows impatient, pacing a few steps. "We have rules here. This park isn't a shelter, got it?" James looks down, his hands trembling slightly, though his voice stays calm. "I'm not asking for anything, just a little peace." Officer Grant scoffs, his voice rising. "Do you know how many calls we get about loiterers? I'm tired of chasing people off just so families can feel safe here." A mother nearby holds her daughter a bit tighter. The older girl, sensing the unease, whispers, "Is he in trouble?" Her mother tries to smile, but her eyes reflect uncertainty. Officer Mitchell tries again, his voice softer, but still cautious. "We're not saying you've done anything, sir, but we can't have folks hanging around for hours. It makes people nervous, you know." James takes a slow breath. glancing at the crowd. He catches the eye of the teenager from the basketball court who looks back with hesitant empathy. Why are they bothering him? The boy mutters under his breath. His friends whisper in agreement, shifting feet, but not daring to speak up. Officer Hayes finally joins in. We're not trying to be the bad guys here, but we need to keep order. Maybe you could move along today. James looks at them, disappointment and sadness etched on his face. He stands up slowly. Is wanting a quiet spot so wrong I've served this country? This is my home too. Officer Grant's expression hardens. We all have our duties, sir. Rules are rules. Dalton hesitates. Come on, Riley, don't do this. But Riley interrupts, gesturing sharply. Let's wrap this up, okay? A silence envelops the park. Even the birds seem to quiet, honoring the discomfort in the air. The teenagers gather their basketball, eyeing the officers warily. The mother on the bench whispers, maybe we should head to the kids' area. James adjusts his jacket, preparing to leave each step feeling heavier than the last. He pauses, looking back at the officers, his voice trembling. You don't know what it's like to come back trying to find your place. I've fought for this country. I thought maybe I'd found somewhere to breathe at last. Dalton's eyes flash with guilt. We're just following procedure. James shakes his head, resigned. Procedure doesn't see the person, just the problem. Suddenly, from the edge of the park, a loud voice rings out. That man is a hero. My father served with him in Vietnam. He's not the problem. A tall, sturdy, older black man strides quickly toward the group. He wears a worn hat with a military badge. His eyes meet James's, and recognition sparks between them. James, is that you? James's face softens, relief washing over him. Walter, it's been too long. Walter turns to the officers, his voice firm and fierce. Do you see this man? He saved lives over there more than I can count. He doesn't deserve this. Officer Mitchell hesitates. We were just saying, but Walter cuts him off. Have you ever risked your life for someone who didn't look like you? Have you ever stood on the front lines and brought your brothers home? James has. He's not just some stranger in the park. He's a Marine. He's family. A wave ripples through the crowd. People murmur, that's right. Others nod in agreement. The teenagers look at James with newfound respect. The mother sighs shakily, her daughters wide-eyed. Officer Hayes, clearly moved, clears her throat. We didn't mean any disrespect, sir. We're just doing our jobs. Walter grips James's shoulder, and so am I. My job is to protect those who protected us. James closes his eyes for a moment, flooded with gratitude and pain. Officer Grant, now defensive, snaps, All right, that's enough. Let's move along. But just then, the K9 unit rounds the path. A large German shepherd strains at the leash, its handler barely keeping up. Dalton calls out, Let's keep it civil, all right. James looks at the dog, his breath catching in his chest. The energy in the park shifts, anticipation spreading like wildfire. No one knows what's about to happen. The late afternoon sun stretches shadows across the park, painting everything in gold and tension. James stands beside Walter, the weight in his chest growing with each heartbeat. Every eye is fixed on the path where the muscular German shepherd pulls eagerly at its lead. The handler, Officer Bennett, approaches with purposeful authority, his face set for the task. Officer Grant seizes the moment, gesturing sharply, Enough talk! Clear the area! Walter stands firm, his voice unwavering. He's done nothing wrong. You can't just... But Riley interjects, We have orders, sir. We'll handle it. The German shepherd stares at James' ears, perked body taut. Matthews commands, "Stay," and the dog sits still, staring, muscles quivering with anticipation. The tension crackles in the air. Everyone watching, every officer, every breath on the edge of the inevitable. James looks at the dog, a deeper light flickering in his eyes. He swallows memories rushing in jungle rain mud underfoot, the roar of helicopters, and the unspoken bond only he and his canine companion shared. Officer Grant barks, "Step away from the bench now, sir." Walter tenses fists, clenching. "This is wrong. You know it is." But Dalton interjects anxiously, "Everyone stay calm. There's no need for this to get out of hand." The children stop playing, their parents pulling them close. Phones come out, some recording, others ready just in case. The teenagers from the basketball court abandon their game, drawing nearer with worried curiosity. Matthews, feeling the scrutiny, straightens up. "Final warning, sir. If you don't leave the park, we'll have to escort you out." James looks him straight in the eye, firm and resolute. "Where do you want me to go?" Matthews hesitates. "Anywhere but here." Walter, his voice hoarse with emotion, pleads, "Just leave him be. That's all he wants. Just to sit in peace." Riley ignores him, nodding to Matthews, "Deploy the dog. Let's resolve this." Matthews clenches his jaw. He loosens the leash with a quick motion. The shepherd lunges forward, barking fiercely. "Back up!" Gasps erupt. A mother shields her daughter. Walter steps in front of James, but James suddenly calms gently, placing a hand on Walter's arm. "No, let him come." The shepherd closes the distance in seconds. Its powerful body blurs with motion precise from endless training. But as it nears James, something changes. The dog slows, nose-twitching eyes locked on James's face, a flash of recognition in its gaze. Matthews shouts, "Ranger, stop!" But the dog barely hears him. The entire park seems to hold its breath. James kneels down, arms open wide. "Hello, old friend?" His voice melts into a whisper laden with memories. "It's me, James." The German Shepherd Ranger halts inches away. For a split-second time, stands still. Then, with a soft whine, Ranger moves forward, tail wagging, nuzzling into James's chest. The tough, disciplined dog dissolves into a puddle of pure devotion, whimpering softly as if greeting a long-lost friend. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Someone murmurs, "What in the world?" Walter wipes his eyes, voice shaking. "I can't believe it." Officer Bennett is stunned. "Ranger, what are you doing?" James wraps his arms around Ranger's neck, tears streaming down his face. "You remember, don't you? We were brothers out there. You saved me more than once." The crowd witnesses the impossible silence falling like a blanket. In that moment, prejudices, protocols, and doubts melt away, replaced by awe, humility, and the kind of love forged in the darkest places. Officer Grant steps back, pale-faced. "This doesn't make sense." Matthews kneels beside Ranger, trying to regain control. "Come on, buddy. Back to work." But Ranger ignores him, refusing to leave James's side. Dalton says softly, "He's not just any man." Walter nods, voice hoarse. "He's family to all of us." James buries his face in Ranger's fur, whispering, "Thank you. You're still watching over me, aren't you?" For the first time that day, James feels truly seen. The burdens he carries, the loneliness, the rejections, the invisible wounds all lift, if only for a heartbeat. In the presence of love and loyalty, nothing else matters. But as the park absorbs this miracle, a different tension takes root. The officers know something irreversible has happened, and the community's eyes are watching, recording, remembering. Somewhere in that electric silence, the real lesson of the day begins to unfold. The silence after Ranger's unexpected embrace feels almost sacred, pure, and raw, leaving no one daring to interrupt. The park, buzzing with worry just minutes ago, is now held captive by a sight no one could have foreseen. James, still kneeling, buries his face in Ranger's fur, the weight of years pouring out in shuddering sobs. Each tear isn't just for him, but for every soldier who's felt forgotten, for every bond that outlasts the war. Walter kneels beside him, his hand gently on James's shoulder. He never forgot you, brother. None of us have. Ranger presses closer, eyes closed in quiet joy, tail thumping steadily on the ground. Officer Bennett tries to call the dog again. Ranger, heel! But Ranger stays put beside James, a vivid contrast to the uniform's commands. Officer Grant stares, his earlier bravado gone. How is this even possible? His words falter, uncertainty clouding his face. Dalton's voice softens, almost reverent. Sometimes the world reminds us of what truly matters. Around them, the crowd's energy shifts. Those ready to judge, ready to film another incident, now find their hearts drawn to something deeper, a testament to love that transcends the greatest storms. The teenagers drop their ball and join the crowd, their usual cockiness replaced by wonder. One whispers, "That's real loyalty, man." A woman steps forward, phone shaking in her hand. She wipes her eyes, breath ragged. "My father was in the military. He always said, soldiers never forget themselves." A little girl clings to her mother, looking up with wide, fierce eyes. "Why is the dog hugging him, Mom?" Her mother kneels down, voice husky, "Because sometimes even heroes need to be loved, sweetheart." Officer Bennett, torn between duty and the living miracle before him, kneels beside Ranger. His hand hovers uncertainly before gently stroking the dog's back. I've never seen him act like this, not with anyone. James looks up, meeting Matthew's eyes with a trembling smile. We're brothers in arms from a place where only trust can save you. Matthew swallows, the rigidity in his stance melting away. You two served together. James nods, his voice steady. Vietnam years ago. He found me when no one else could. Pulled me out of the jungle when I thought I was done for. The crowd leans in, captivated by the gravity of the story. Even the officers, now stripped of certainty, listen as if hearing a gospel they'd nearly forgotten. Walter speaks up, his voice clear and resonant. This man isn't a stranger. He's a hero. How many times do we have to be reminded, don't judge a life by what you see in an afternoon? Officer Grant looks away, his badge suddenly feeling heavy. Dalton, eyes glistening, murmurs, "We owe you an apology, sir. All of us do." James shakes his head, hand still on Ranger's fur. I don't want apologies, just respect, just a little dignity. The woman with the phone still filming finds her voice. Everyone needs to see this. The whole world needs to remember who built the freedoms we take for granted. The crowd nods, some recording, others simply bearing witness. The air fills with something fresh. Shame for past mistakes, yes, but also a budding hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, things can change if people are willing to open up. Ranger, sensing the shift, sighs contentedly, eyes closed. James smiles, wiping his tears. It's all right, old friend. We're safe now. Officer Bennett whispers to his colleagues, give them a moment. They deserve that. The officers step back, creating space, not just physically, but emotionally. For the first time that day, James doesn't feel like an outsider. The crowd draws closer now in unity, not suspicion. Walter squeezes James's shoulder, voice low. "You're not invisible anymore. Not today." James looks at him, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, Walter, for standing up when it mattered." Walter grins, tears glistening. That's what brothers do. As the sun sets and darkness falls, the park has transformed. Not a battlefield conquered by force, but by compassion. Strangers find themselves united, their differences bridged by unbreakable bonds of connection, respect, and shared history. In that golden hour, a simple act of loyalty and recognition heals wounds no one else could see, proving once more that true courage isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's about love, forgiveness, and finally being seen. As dusk settles, painting the world in velvet blues and golds, the mood in the park shifts from shock to reflection. The magic of James and Ranger lingers in the air, a silence woven with awe and a quiet yearning for understanding. For the first time that day, James is no longer just a figure on a bench. He is the center of a vibrant circle, a beacon for stories waiting to be told. The teenagers move closer, drawn by a force they can't explain. The tallest one, Jaden, finally speaks. "Sir, did you really serve with that dog?" His eyes wide, hesitant but respectful. James smiles, the lines around his eyes deepening. "Yes, Ranger and I were partners. We watched each other's backs through the mud and rain in the darkest places you can imagine." A curly-haired girl with a phone steps forward. "Were you scared?" Her voice is gentle, almost apologetic. James gazes at her, recalling the days. But Ranger, he never hesitated. Not once. He charged into danger to save a life even when everyone else ran. The crowd hangs on his every word. Even Officer Grant, who tried so hard to control it all, stands quietly on the edge, arms folded, staring at the ground. Matthews places a hand on Ranger's back, now understanding that his K9 partner is more than just a dog. He is a link between generations. Walter, ever the silent sentinel, sits beside James, nodding. "You know, folks talk a lot about courage, but they never mention the price." James's voice quivers. "It costs us everything. I lost brothers over there, friends I'll never see again, but I found family too, sometimes with people, sometimes with a dog." An elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes, silent until now, steps forward. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Why keep it all inside?" James glances at her, searching for words. Sometimes people don't want to hear it. They want heroes to look a certain way, fit their story. But life isn't like that. Heroes are everywhere, sometimes right in front of you, just trying to live in peace. Tears well in the woman's eyes. "I wish my son could hear that. He served too. Never talked about it." James takes her hand, his grip firm. "He's not alone, ma'am. None of us are, if we remember each other." The little girl from earlier tugs at her mother's sleeve. "Mom, is he going to take the dog home now?" Her mother shakes her head, voice trembling. "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe they belong together." Matthews looks at James, then at Ranger. "He's never been like this with anyone. You must be special to him." James nods, tears glistening. "He saved me when I couldn't save myself. There were days I thought I'd never make it home. But Ranger always found a way. He wouldn't let me give up." Jaden, eyes bright, exclaims, "That's the kind of story they should teach in school. Not just names and dates, but real people, real heroes." Walter grins. "That's right, son. When those voices fade, the whole park feels transformed. As those voices faded away, the whole park seemed to transform into something new. The crowd, once strangers to each other, now shared a deep sense of unity, not just from James's story, but from the powerful lesson it carried. Judging is easy enough, but truly understanding takes real courage. Sometimes, to find true healing, all a person really needs is to be seen and understood for who they are. James offers a forgiving smile. Thank you. That means more than you know. Matthew, still kneeling beside Ranger, says, if you want to see him again, you're always welcome. Ranger remembers his friends. The crowd nods and disperses. The mother with her little daughter hugs her child tightly, whispering, let's always look for the good in people, even if we don't see it right away. As twilight deepens, the city lights flicker, reflecting in everyone's eyes. They've witnessed something rare, not just a reunion, but a moment where compassion triumphs over doubt, where memories become bridges instead of walls. James takes a deep breath, feeling for the first time in a long while that he's finally home. Night gently envelops the park, the last rays fading behind the city skyline as if the day lingers just to see what comes next. James remains on the grass, Ranger pressed close while Walter, the quiet guardian, surveys the gathering crowd. It's no longer just a crowd, it's a community, curious, humbled, quietly changed. The teenagers, with Jaden in the lead, draw nearer. His voice is a little shaky. Mr. James, can I shake your hand? James smiles, extending his hand firm and warm. Of course, son. Jaden grins and shakes it. You're like a legend, sir. His friends chime in, voices overlapping. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your service. Officer Mitchell lingers at the edge of the path, clearly unsettled. He clears his throat, speaking more to the ground than anyone. I didn't know who you were. I just thought you were another guy hanging around. James nods firmly. Sometimes we forget that everyone has a story. Matthew, still thoughtfully stroking Ranger's fur, says he's never acted like this before. Never. He's seen a lot, maybe too much. It stays with you even after the fighting stops. Walter steps forward, facing the officers. When you see a brother sitting alone, don't just ask what he's doing. Ask who he is. You might be surprised by the answer. Officer Grant tries to meet James's eyes, guilt flickering across his face. I was wrong. I let my assumptions speak instead of my heart. James accepts it graciously. It takes a big man to admit that, more than hiding behind a badge. Thank you. From the bench, the mother with her little daughter finally rises, slowly approaching the girl tugging at her skirt. Sir, my dad was in the military. He said soldiers are family no matter where they come from. James smiles gently. Your dad was right. Family isn't about blood. It's about who stands with you when it matters. The silver-haired woman, tears glistening on her cheeks, presses a tissue to her lips. You've given us all something to think about. You said that soldiers are like family no matter where they're from. James smiled gently. Your dad was right. Family isn't about blood ties. It's about who's there for you when you need them most. The silver-haired woman, with tears glistening on her cheeks, pressed a tissue to her lips. You've given us so much to reflect on, even something to hold on to for hope. Jaden's friends nudged each other, feeling shy but truly inspired. One of them blurted out, maybe next time I'll try talking to someone instead of just walking on by. Walter grinned from ear to ear, his eyes lighting up. That's how real change starts, one person at a time. In the distance, many onlookers lingered, watching the ripple effect of that special moment spread. Phones were filming not for drama, but to preserve memories, to capture the instant when hearts opened up and walls came tumbling down. Matthews unclipped Ranger's leash, letting the dog sit freely beside James. He deserved this chance. I guess we all do. The crowd chuckled softly, the tension melting away in a warm, almost sacred glow. We all do. The crowd chuckled softly, the tension melting away in a warm, almost sacred glow. James glanced around, feeling humbled by the kindness washing over him. He cleared his throat, searching for the right words. I never wanted the spotlight. I just wanted a place to call my own. That's what we all want, isn't it? The group murmured in agreement, like folks saying, "Yes, sir, you're right on the money." Officer Mitchell looked at his colleagues with a voice full of conviction. Make sure this never happens again. Start doing better right now. Walter patted James on the back, beaming with pride. You see, you always have a way of bringing folks together, even when you don't mean to. Ranger, sensing it all, rolled over and lolled his tongue in that rare, goofy grin. Laughter erupted from the crowd. In that moment, barriers of age, race, and rank seemed to vanish, leaving only gratitude, humanity, and a gentle hope that tomorrow might be brighter. As dusk settled and city lights began to twinkle, people started to drift away, each carrying a lesson home with them. The mother squeezed James's hand one last time. Thank you for reminding us that everyone matters. James closed his eyes, a quiet joy blooming in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt truly at home, not just held by memories, but by community and the steadfast love of an old friend he'd never forgotten. The moon rose high, casting a silver glow over the park and draping the trees in soft shadows. Most of the crowd had dispersed, but a few lingered, unable or perhaps unwilling to let that sense of unity slip away so quickly. For James, the world felt lighter, as if the sharp edges of loneliness had been smoothed by waves of compassion. But the officers stayed behind, standing together under the flickering lights. Dalton cleared his throat, his voice heavy. We need to file the report tonight. There'll be questions. Riley shifted uncomfortably. Worry etched across his face. Everyone had their cameras out. Social media probably has it by now. Matthew, still kneeling beside Ranger, sighed. If the chief sees the footage before we explain, it's going to be bad for all of us. Walter, never one to back down, stepped forward, his voice calm. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's time for everything to come to light. Dalton looked up and met James's eyes. Sir, would you like us to include anything in the report? Do you want to say something on your own behalf? James shook his head, his expression thoughtful. Just write the truth. All I want is a quiet place to rest and a chance to remember those I've lost. You've done your duty, perhaps. Remember, your job isn't just about rules. It's about people. The silver-haired woman from earlier returned, gently placing her hand on James's shoulder. Would you mind if I shared what happened with the local paper? Folks need to know this story. James nodded gratefully. Please do. Maybe it'll help others feel a little less alone. Jaden and his friend, still buzzing with energy, started talking all at once. I'll tell my dad what happened here. My uncle's a cop. I'll show him this video. I wish every day could be like this, when people really listen. Walter smiled, pride swelling in him. You're making this world a little better already, you boys. Keep it up. Officer Grant, his face flushed with embarrassment and determination, steps forward. Mr. Harris, I know an apology doesn't solve anything, but I'm sorry for everything. James nods with deep sincerity. James nodded, his sincerity shining through. Matthews quietly reached for Ranger's collar, but the dog stayed put beside James, as if he wanted one last moment in the scene they'd created together. Matthew smiled. "I think he's trying to tell you he's not ready to say goodbye yet." James scratched behind Ranger's ear, his voice full of gentleness. "We're all too old for goodbyes, aren't we?" The silver-haired woman looked around, her eyes bright. "I hope we all remember tonight. I hope we don't forget what it feels like to stand united." Jaden, his eyes lighting up, exclaimed, "Can we all take a photo so we remember?" Laughter rang out, light, relieved, and genuine. Walter pulled out his phone, gathering everyone into a comfortable, joyful group. James in the middle, Ranger at his side, the officers, the kids, the elders, and even the mother and her little daughter. "Say cheese. No better yet, say family. Family." The shutter clicked, freezing that moment. A mosaic of faces, some tear-streaked, some smiling, all transformed. Dalton spoke again, this time more softly. "We'll do better, sir. I promise." James looked at each of them, gratitude shining through. That's all anyone can ask for. The silver-haired woman slipped her arm through James's. "Would you like a ride home? Or you could stay longer if you'd like some company." James smiled, warmed by the offer. "Maybe just for a little while. It feels wonderful not to be invisible." As the lights cast long shadows across the grass, that small group lingered. They shared stories of war and peace, of families lost and found, of courage and regrets. The kind of stories that build bridges, the kind that outlast any argument or anger. This gentle, undeniable lesson echoed through every heart. True change starts with an act of understanding, a moment of courage, and the willingness to come together when it matters most. And under the moonlit sky, James realized that even the deepest wounds can heal not through anger or force, but through compassion, forgiveness, and the simple, enduring power of human kindness. By morning, the city had changed, even if on the surface everything looked the same. Sunlight poured over the front lawns and through kitchen windows as the news anchor's voice filled living rooms with stories of weather sports and an extraordinary event at Lincoln Park the night before. Footage of James embracing Ranger aired on every channel, highlighting the reunion between a veteran and his canine companion after decades. A reminder to look beyond the surface before judging. Phones buzzed with messages. "Did you see what happened at Lincoln Park? I didn't know stories like this still existed." James woke to his phone ringing with a barrage of messages flashing on the screen. He sat up slowly, his heart pounding in disbelief. For years, he'd walked through the world like a shadow. Today, strangers were sending him thanks, hope, and even apologies. Walter was the first to call, his voice loud and clear. "My friend, you're famous now. People are saying your story brought the whole town closer together, maybe even the whole country." James laughed, still in awe. "I didn't do anything special. I just sat down and waited for the sun to set." Walter's tone turned serious. "You reminded them of decency, and you did it without raising your voice. That's special." Meanwhile, officers Dalton and Matthews arrived at the station early. They weren't met with anger, but with genuine questions. The chief called them in with a stern expression. "Walk me through every detail of what happened." Dalton spoke first, his voice clear and vulnerable. "We made assumptions, Chief. We let fear lead instead of facts. Mr. Harris James, he deserved better than that." Matthews nodded. "Ranger, too. That dog never showed affection like that to anyone in uniform. It meant something." The chief listened, then said, "This is the picture of accountability. The whole city is watching. You'll attend sensitivity training, and I want you to speak at community meetings. Share what you've learned. Tell them about James, about how that dog chose compassion over commands. Riley, who had been quiet, finally looked up. I want to apologize to James personally. If needed, I'll go to the whole park. The chief nodded. You should, and you will. Meanwhile, the silver-haired woman, a journalist, typed through the night, her story landing on the front page of local papers. A divided park, a mended community. How a veteran and his dog brought us back together. Social media flooded with comments. We need more moments like this. Thank you, James. Thank you, Ranger. This morning, I hugged my dad. He served too. He cried, reading your story. Jaden and his friends arrived at school and were greeted by classmates who recognized their faces in the photos. Hey, you were there. Was it really like that? Jaden grinned. Even better. Back at the park, James and Walter met again, sitting side by side on the same old bench. Ranger was there too, with permission from Matthews to visit every morning. You two make quite the pair, Matthews said with a smile. Ranger will let me know when it's time to go. A steady stream of visitors came by, some to thank him, others to share their own stories of service or struggles. Their struggles. Some just wanted to shake James's hand and say, "You're important." Even the little girl and her mother returned, bringing homemade cookies for him and Ranger. The girl beamed and knelt down to pet Ranger's ears. "You're the bravest dog I've ever seen." James's heart swelled. Each gesture mended old and new wounds. That afternoon, Officer Grant arrived, hat in hand, humility in every step. "Mr. Harris, I want to apologize for yesterday, for the times I looked away, for forgetting you were a person, not a problem." James looked at him for a long moment before silently extending his hand. "It takes courage to show up. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do next." Riley's relief was evident, a lesson that hits home. "Thank you, sir. I'll do better, I promise." And as the sun set, casting golden rays over the three of them, James, Walter, and Ranger. Survivors, all living proof that change is possible, that grace can bloom from the harshest ground. And as the day faded, the city watched, listened, and began to believe, if only for a moment, that healing is possible for everyone everywhere. Weeks passed, and what started as a confrontation became something no one in the city could have foreseen. James found his life transformed, no longer lonely, but filled with the gentle rhythm of conversations, laughter, and reminiscences. The bench where it all began had become a quiet landmark. Strangers stopped to chat, to listen, sometimes just to sit and breathe beside James and Ranger. The once faded wood was now polished by countless visitors, finding solace in its story, a story they helped write. One morning, the silver-haired journalist returned, notebook in hand, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mr. Harris, the mayor wants to honor you. There'll be a ceremony in the park. Everyone's invited." James's eyes widened, gratitude surging. "That's something I never imagined." Walter grinned widely, patting James on the back. "Look what happens when you finally let people in." The day of the ceremony dawned clear and bright. Families gathered. Veterans in crisp uniforms mingled with teens in hoodies. Officers in blue stood respectfully to one side. The mayor stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "Today, we're not just recognizing a man, but a message, a call to see each other with compassion. Mr. James Carter, you've shown us that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you cherish in yourself and in others." The crowd erupted in applause. Jaden and his friends cheered. The little girl waved a small flag and Ranger barked, wagging his tail furiously. The mayor pointed to a new plaque on the bench, its words gleaming in the morning sun. This seat is dedicated to all who serve seen and unseen. Let this be a place of peace, courage, and connection. James stepped forward, his voice trembling. Thank you for this and for making room for all of us. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't overseas. They're right here in our hearts. Every time we choose to care instead of turn away. He paused, scanning the crowd, looking at the officers, the kids, the elders at Walter with tears on his cheeks, at Ranger, ever loyal by his side. None of us can make it through life alone. We all need a place to rest, a friend to trust, and a community that believes we're important. I hope this bench reminds you every day that you're not invisible and you're never truly alone. From the edge of the crowd, Officer Grant spoke up, his voice unsteady but strong. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for forgiving us, for teaching us how to see. Dalton and Matthews nodded, their faces reflecting the humility of hard-earned lessons. The silver-haired journalist lowered her camera, tears in her eyes. Applause rose again, echoing through the trees and carried on the wind like a blessing. Afterward, as the ceremony ended and people began to disperse, James lingered on the bench with Ranger's head resting in his lap. Walter sat beside him, a comfortable silence blooming between them. You know, Walter whispered, if more folks had the courage to listen, maybe the world would be a gentler place. James nodded, his gaze soft. Just one moment, one kind act, one friend remembered. The final rays of sunlight stretched across the park, gilding the world. It takes a lot of courage to say that, officer, more than you might realize. James gazed at the children playing the police, laughing with neighbors, a community renewed, and deep down, he knew the world could truly change if enough hearts opened up one by one. As dusk settled and the stars began to twinkle awake, James closed his eyes, a sense of peace washing over him.